Synth TV.
Hey everybody, Synth TV, and today we pay tribute to the pioneering electronic musician Klaus Schulze, who passed away on April 26th. Klaus Schulze came out of the musical milieu of Berlin in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He was the drummer for Tangerine Dream when they released their debut album, Electronic Meditation. Although he left the group shortly after this, his musical growth would remain intertwined with Tangerine Dream throughout the decade. Schulze went on to found the influential krautrock band Ash Ra Temple with Manuel Gutsching and Hartmut Enke. Their sound combined intense drumming and harsh guitar drones with repetitive patterns and rhythms for an effect that was almost hypnotic and would portend Schulze's later electronic work. He left the band after a year to embark on a solo career where he began to experiment with electronics. His solo debut Erlicht featured a symphony orchestra filtered beyond recognition, and his follow-up, Cyborg, featured the EMS Synthy VCS. One already hears the long evolving atmospheric pads and repeated rhythmic patterns that would be the hallmark of his music throughout the 1970s, including the seminal albums Time Wind and Moon Dawn. The style of ambient floating masses of sound, with short repeated layered rhythmic structures, became known as the Berlin School, of which Tangerine Dream also became an influential member. By this point, Schulze had fully embraced synthesizers for his music and often worked with a vast array of instruments, like the Moog Modular, Mini Moog, Polymoog, ARP 2600 and Odyssey, Yamaha CS80, Mellotron Farfisa, and more. He was a strong proponent of playing live on stage and would often focus his performances on new material rather than performing his already recorded repertoire. In 1979, he released his album Dune, inspired by the Frank Herbert series of the same name. The books and their universe were a source of inspiration he would return to later in life. In the 1980s, Schulze embraced the emerging digital technologies, including wavetable synthesis in the PPG Wave and samplers such as the Fairlight CMI. He also began to embrace computer technology. The shift can be heard in albums like Trancifer with its starkly defined repetitive sequences and digital timbres. But many of the musical elements that defined his Berlin School period remained. Schulze always continued to embrace new technologies, such as the MIDI instruments of the late 1980s and the Atari ST computer as tools for composition and performance. In the 2000s, he also began to work with virtual instruments alongside an ever more diverse range of hardware. He also branched out in different musical directions. He incorporated more operatic sounds and styles into his music. He also experimented with samples and found sounds. He also continued to collaborate with other musicians, such as Pat Namlook and Bill Laswell on his Dark Side of the Moog series, which reimagined Pink Floyd's music entirely with Moog analog synthesizers. Schulze continued to be a prolific composer in the 2000s. He released 2 box sets of new studio material entitled Contemporary Works in 2000 and 2002, respectively. In 2013, Schulze retired from live performance, but continued to create new music both as a solo artist and collaborator. He did several collaborations with Lisa Gerrard of Dead Can Dance. He contributed a track to Hans Zimmer's Dune sketchbook, which featured music from the soundtrack of the 2021 film. For Schulze, this was a return to the world of Dune. He followed up with a new full album, Deus Arrakis, scheduled for release this June. It will be a bittersweet release without the artist himself. We at CatSynth extend our thoughts to his family, friends, and colleagues. Do you have any thoughts about the legacy and music of Klaus Schulze? Please let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to CatSynth TV.